So lads, today the WNBA have officially announced their 5 MVP finalists. Did they do this last year? I don't think so. I don't think they announced their 5 MVP finalists. It's going to be announced on Sunday.
The announcement dropped and sent shockwaves through the basketball world, but not for the reason you might think. The WNBA revealed its 5 finalists for the most prestigious individual award, and while names like Aya Wilson and Napheesa Collier were expected, one name made everyone stop and double-take. Kelsey Mitchell. For years, she was a star nobody talked about, the prolific scorer on a team the league had written off. But this season, something shifted. The narrative cracked. So why did this particular nomination feel like a direct challenge to the so-called experts? And what does it reveal about the silent value everyone else missed? Stick around, because the story of how Kelsey Mitchell forced the world to notice is a lesson in persistence that's more thrilling than any award ceremony. To understand why this moment is so significant, you have to remember where Kelsey Mitchell stood just a year ago. For the first part of her career, she was saddled with a frustrating label, the invisible star. She could put up points with the best of them, consistently hitting 18, 19, 20 points a night, but those numbers were dismissed as empty calories. The Indiana Fever were stuck in a cycle of losing seasons, a franchise that hadn't been relevant since the days of Tamika Catchings. The critics had a simple, devastating argument. Yeah, she can score, but what does it matter if the team never wins? She was seen as a one-dimensional gunner on a bad team, and that perception became a cage that kept her out of any serious national conversation.
Kelsey Mitchell is one of the finalists. So the last 2 years, the Indiana Fever have had MVP finalists, and this is a team that since Tamika Catchings has had nobody. And prior to last year, Kelsey Mitchell was just a scorer on bad teams. Aaliyah Boston was a pretty good rookie, a real good rookie in fact. But the finalists here,
it's the classic athlete's trap. Your talent is undeniable, but your environment defines your value in the eyes of everyone else. Think about those years. Game after game, Mitchell would put on a scoring clinic, but the final scoreboard would tell a story of defeat. It creates a brutal cycle for a talented player. The highlights don't get shared because the team lost. The national media doesn't bother showing up for post-game interviews after a 15-point defeat. Even if you drop 25 yourself, you become a secret known only to the most dedicated fans of the league and your own franchise. The conversation around her was always qualified. She's a great scorer, but what? But the defense isn't there? But she doesn't make her teammates better? These criticisms are easy to levy when a team is struggling to find any kind of footing. There's no winning to prove the opposite. She was drafted to be a cornerstone, but the foundation around her was constantly shifting. New coaches, new systems, young players trying to find their way. Through it all, her one constant was putting the ball in the basket. It was her identity, but it also became her prison. The league moved on to celebrate players on winning teams, and Kelsey Mitchell, through no fault of her own performance, was left in the shadows, a star burning bright, but seen by far too few. This history is what makes her current recognition so deeply meaningful. It's a redemption arc years in the making. But then, the entire landscape in Indiana changed almost overnight. The franchise drafted Aaliyah Boston, who immediately became a force and won Rookie of the Year. Then came the arrival of Caitlin Clark, the most hyped prospect in maybe the history of the sport. The Fever were suddenly the center of the basketball universe.
Kelsey, it was win or go home. You guys advanced. Getting to the semis for the first time since 2015. Earlier today, you told me it's going to be about the gut check with this team. What did you see from that standpoint?
It got ugly, it got mucky. You knew Atlanta was going to be aggressive and, make stuff ugly for us. And down the stretch of the game was about getting stops, and Lexi Hall got the stop. So it takes all of us.
But for Mitchell, this created a new uncertainty. The assumption from the outside was clear. This was now Caitlin Clark's team. With Aaliyah Boston as a co-star, Kelsey Mitchell, the veteran, would naturally be phased into a smaller, supporting role. The narrative was set. Her time as a primary option was over, and she would become a footnote in the new era of Fever basketball. The spotlight was shifting, and many believed it was shifting away from her for good. Imagine the internal pressure. You've been a leading scorer for years on a team going nowhere. Finally, the front office brings in elite talent, the kind that promises to change the fate of the franchise. The excitement is palpable. But for a player in Mitchell's position, there's also a quiet anxiety. Where do I fit? Sports history is littered with veterans who were pushed aside when a new, shiny superstar arrived. The speculation wasn't just fan talk, it was a logical assumption. The offense would naturally run through Clark, the generational passer and shooter. Boston would command the paint. The math seemed simple, and it suggested fewer shots, less responsibility, and a diminished role for Mitchell. Some even whisper about potential trades, suggesting she might be better suited elsewhere. It was a crossroads moment. Would she embrace a reduced part, or would she find a way to evolve and force her way into the new narrative? This was the unspoken challenge facing her as the season began. Not just competing against other teams, but competing for her own place on a team that was transforming before her very eyes. The expectations of the Fever were rising, and the question hanging over Kelsey Mitchell was whether she would be lifted up by the tide or washed away by it. What actually happened next was the ultimate plot twist. Instead of being overshadowed, Kelsey Mitchell was amplified. The presence of Caitlin Clark, a historic shooter and passer, forced defenses to make impossible choices. They couldn't double-team Mitchell anymore without leaving Clark open. When defenses stretched the perimeter to contain Clark, it created driving lanes at Mitchell with her lightning-quick speed, exploited like never before. This wasn't a reduction of her role, it was an optimization. The result? Mitchell delivered one of the most efficient and vital seasons of her career. She started all 44 games, a testament to her durability and consistency. She averaged 20.2 points per game, which placed her third in the entire league in scoring, right behind MVP winner Aya Wilson and finalist Napheesa Collier. The empty stats narrative wasn't just weakening, it was shattering. Every bucket now contributed to a winning cause, propelling the Fever into playoff contention. The synergy between Mitchell and Clark became the Fever's secret weapon. It wasn't about one player deferring to the other. It was a perfect basketball partnership. Clark's unparalleled court vision meant she always found Mitchell when she was hot, trusting her veteran teammate in crucial moments. Conversely, Mitchell's ability to create her own shot took immense pressure off the rookie Clark. On nights when Clark was facing a box-and-one defense or was hounded relentlessly, Mitchell became the release valve. She could isolate, break down her defender, and get a quality look, keeping the offense from stalling. This versatility made the Fever incredibly difficult to guard. You couldn't just stop one player. Her efficiency numbers saw a dramatic uptick because the shots she was getting were cleaner, more within the flow of the offense. This wasn't the same player forcing up difficult attempts on a bad team. This was an elite scorer now operated with more space and better opportunities. She proved that her talent was never the issue. It was the situation. Given the right supporting cast and a system that leveraged her strengths, Kelsey Mitchell didn't just coexist with new stars. She thrived alongside them, cementing her status as an essential, not incidental, part of the Fever's success. Now, let's be clear. Nobody is arguing that Kelsey Mitchell was going to beat out Aya Wilson for the MVP trophy. Wilson had a historic season, securing a record-breaking fourth MVP award with dominant numbers across the board. But the word valuable can mean different things. For the Indiana Fever, Mitchell's value was immeasurable. While the Fever dealt with significant injuries to key players throughout the season, Mitchell was a constant. She was a steady hand, the veteran presence who knew how to score under pressure when the team needed a basket. Fans arguing her case online pointed out that she was a glue that held the team together through the turmoil, the player who carried her team when it mattered most. Her value wasn't just in her points. It was in her leadership and her unwavering reliability game in and game out. This nomination forced a conversation about what we truly prize in a most valuable player. Value can be about availability. In a long and grueling season, Mitchell's Iron Woman consistency of playing in every single game provided the Fever with a rock-solid foundation. While other players moved in and out of the lineup, she was always there. Coaches will tell you that reliability is a form of value that doesn't always show up in the highlight reels. Furthermore, her value was her adaptability. She didn't demand a specific role. She molded her game to fit what the team needed. Some nights, that meant being the explosive leading scorer. Other nights, it meant moving without the ball, playing tough defense, and taking charge when the moment called for it. Her leadership as a veteran who had endured the toughest years also provided invaluable perspective for the younger players. She knew what real struggle looked like, which made the climb to relevance all the more sweet and meaningful. This nomination acknowledges that value isn't a one-size-fits-all award. It can recognize the dominant force, but it can also honor the indispensable pillar, the player whose contribution, while different, was equally critical to their team's journey. Mitchell's case makes us argue about the very definition of the award, and that in itself is a win. This is where the story gets really interesting for the critics who had dismissed her for so long. Their goalposts suddenly had to move. The old excuse, she puts up numbers on a bad team, was completely obsolete. The Fever were now a playoff team. The new excuse, she's just a secondary option now, didn't hold water because her performance was more impactful than ever. The league itself, by including her among the top 5 players, was validating what Fever fans had known all along. Kelsey Mitchell is an elite-level talent. The nomination wasn't just a pat on the back. It was a seismic shift in her career narrative. For years, she was easy to ignore because it was convenient. Now, ignoring her means ignoring a fundamental piece of one of the league's most fascinating teams. What's left for the critics to say? They can't question her team's success anymore. They can't question her stats, which were among the league's best. The only arguments left are incredibly nuanced and subjective, like advanced defensive metrics, which ultimately missed the forest for the trees. The ultimate validation came from the most important source, the voters. These are basketball experts, analysts, and journalists who officially decided that her contribution was significant enough to be mentioned in the same breath as the undisputed best players in the world. This action effectively retroactively validates her entire career. It suggests that perhaps her talent was always this high, but it's now being fully realized in a competent team structure. This finalist spot is a permanent entry on her resume. Years from now, when people look back at the 2025 WNBA season, they will see Kelsey Mitchell MVP finalist. It erases the old narrative and replaces it with one of triumph and perseverance. It's a lesson that sometimes the most satisfying success isn't an overnight sensation, but a long, hard-fought journey to finally get the respect you've always deserved. Mitchell's individual recognition is a symbol of a much larger transformation happening in Indiana. Just 2 years ago, the Fever were a lottery team. Now, they boast a Rookie of the Year in Boston, a global attraction in Clark, and an MVP finalist in Mitchell. That's a core that signals the end of a long, painful rebuild and the start of a new, competitive chapter. This kind of recognition is a powerful recruiting tool, free agency of franchise that develops and celebrates its stars. Mitchell's journey is the bridge between the franchise's difficult past and its promising future. She endured the worst years, and now she is reaping the rewards, helping to build a culture where Indiana Fever players are expected to be in award conversations. This isn't a fluke. It's the result of a plan coming together. This transformation didn't happen by accident. It was a deliberate and, frankly, brilliantly executed blueprint. First, you draft a foundational big in Aaliyah Boston, a player whose skill and maturity defy her age. Then, you get the lottery luck to add a generational talent like Caitlin Clark, a player who single-handedly shifts the cultural and economic landscape of your organization. But the masterstroke was holding on to and believing in Kelsey Mitchell throughout that process. Many franchises, desperate for a quick fix or feeling the pressure to fully build around a new star, might have considered moving a veteran scorer like Mitchell. But the Fever's front office understood her intrinsic value wasn't just in her points, but in her institutional knowledge and her proven toughness. She became the living proof of the franchise's evolution. For potential free agents watching from other teams, this is incredibly attractive. It's not just about playing with stars. It's about joining an organization that rewards loyalty and recognizes growth. It shows that if you put in the work, you will be celebrated, not cast aside for the next new thing. This creates a sustainable winning culture, not just a flash-in-the-pan moment. The Fever are building something with a deep foundation, and Kelsey Mitchell's story is a cement holding the bricks of Boston and Clark together. Her finalist nomination is a signal to the entire league. Indiana is no longer a destination you pass through. It's a destination where legacies are built and careers are resurrected. The days of being a league-wide afterthought are officially over, replaced by the buzz of a team on the rise, with a core so talented that even their third option is considered among the top 5 players in the world. So where does this leave us? Kelsey Mitchell's name on that MVP finalist list is more than just an honor. It's a correction. It's the basketball world finally acknowledging a truth that was evident all along. She endured the losing seasons, refined her game, and when her team entered a new era of immense pressure and spotlight, she didn't fade away. She rose to the occasion. She proved that value isn't always about being the singular best player on the best team. Sometimes, it's about being the essential piece that allows a team to evolve from afterthought to contender. The critics have run out of excuses. The narrative has been rewritten by her own performance. This nomination ensures that from now on, when you talk about the top guards in the WNBA, you can no longer tell the story without mentioning Kelsey Mitchell. This moment transcends a single season's award. It's about legacy. For years, Mitchell's highlights were buried under team losses. Now, her perseverance is the headline. She represents every player who has ever toiled in obscurity, believing their day would come if they just kept their head down and worked. Her story is a masterclass in professional grit. In an era of player movement, she stayed. She believed in the city and the franchise even when the wins were hard to come by. And now that faith is being repaid in the most public way imaginable. Furthermore, her success story is a vital narrative for the WNBA's growth. It highlights the incredible depth of talent that exists beyond the top 2 or 3 most marketed stars. It tells fans that there are incredible stories and jaw-dropping talents on every team, waiting to be discovered. Mitchell's journey forces us all to look deeper, to appreciate the entire ecosystem of the league, not just the brightest stars. It makes the WNBA more interesting, more complex, and richer. So, while she may not have taken home the MVP trophy, Kelsey Mitchell won something perhaps more lasting, a permanent and undeniable place in the conversation about greatness. She earned her respect the hardest way possible, and no one could ever take that away from her. What do you think? Was Kelsey Mitchell the most valuable finalist in terms of her impact on her team's fortunes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of sports' most satisfying stories, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the headlines. We're just getting started.